Hi everyone, and welcome to this latest edition of In the Fox's Den. And there's a bit of a clue behind me as to who today's guest is, and it's the referee Keith Hackett. And he's going to be talking to us today, not just about the book and about his life, but he's going to be very honest in terms of what he thinks about today's referee. Hi, Keith Hackett. How are you, sir?
I'm very well. Delighted to meet up again after all these months of COVID-19 and the problems that we've all experienced.
Well, the last time I saw you, this wonderful book behind me that
Yes.
that you've done with Paul Trevelyan, who's also been on the show.
Yes.
We were pushing this book, and so the last time I saw you, we went to see a radio station called Love Music, which
That's
sorry,
right.
not Love Music, Love Sport, which
Yes.
sadly isn't around anymore.
Yeah,
But they were
sorry, because I mean, they used to contact me on a frequent basis about refereeing questions that they were getting, or even refereeing performances, which keeps me busy now on TalkSport 2 most Monday mornings, very early on, 7 a.m., reviewing referees' decisions. And I've got to tell you, the current performances, they're keeping me busy.
Yeah, we'll talk a little bit about that. You're on with Paul Coyte, aren't you?
Yes,
Who's
big Spurs fan.
a big Spurs fan. But I know that that you're from Sheffield, so let's come
Yes.
onto that first. So, how did you get started in football? Did you play before you refereed?
Well, I played at grassroots level, played at school, and then played for a junior team in Sheffield. Nothing spectacular. And then the county FA then had this brilliant idea of one person from the team had to go and learn the laws of the game. And I was the guy that was pushed forward as the captain of the team and went for 6 evenings, took the exam, no intentions of refereeing whatsoever. So I had some knowledge of the laws now after 6 evenings. And then out of the blue, I got a call on a Friday from the county FA guy. I always remember it because it was Mr. Hackett. Yes, Mr. Hackett. The guy's just passed his referee. Yes, you're refereeing Hillsborough Boys Club versus Sheffield United Juniors tomorrow at Intake School, and the phone down. I didn't even have the time to say I'm not going to be a referee. I don't want a referee. So my father was very sort of hot steel worker, and he wouldn't let anybody down. He said, "Right, I'm gonna organise shirt. I've got a mate who's a referee. I'll borrow a shirt from him. It was pretty big, and I went out and purchased a whistle on the Saturday morning. Turned up at Intake School, refereed this football match. Thoroughly enjoyed it, and then this guy came up to me who was the secretary of Sheffield United Juniors. These were boys, and just said, "Brilliant game. Really enjoyed your participation. Thanks very much. Handled the guys really well. You're obviously been at it some time." And I go, "Actually, this is my first game." And what I didn't know was he was the father of a Football League official. And I got a call midweek to say, "Look, County FA is going to give you some more games." And I just fell into it that way. And then football is a disease. We all suffer from it, you know, and we never like saying no. And if we've got a time on our hands, we'll go and either watch a match or participate. For me, I spent 12 years, the apprenticeship, if you like, at grassroots level, like most referees. Some do it in 8, some do it in 10 years of refereeing the club teams, the junior teams, having changed without any dressing rooms, traveling. You know, and those early years, I didn't drive a car, so I was actually catching the bus all the time. And for a 3 o'clock kickoff. I mean, I can remember arriving at Penistone Church, where I'm amazingly now the president of that team. We've got 22 teams playing grassroots football, kids of all ages. And I can remember, catching the train. The train arrived at Penistone at 10 o'clock for a 3 o'clock kickoff. I walked to the ground. There was a guy called Arthur Lee, the late Arthur Lee, who was everybody's guy in terms of this club. It was his club. He ran it. He did everything. And I sat around. He gave me a cup of tea, and then there was 2 games on that day. And the first game, he suddenly came panicking and saying, "Look, ref, we've no ref for this game. He's not turned up. He missed the train." And I finished up doing 2 games. And I got a really nice, kind letter that he wrote to the county FA. And that's what I think, we rely on. Referees get to that next stage because the secretary has taken the time of giving you a reasonable mark and a reasonable comment.
Well,
and then,
I mean, it's quite a brave thing to do, though, isn't it? Especially kind of when you're first getting into refereeing. I mean, let's be honest, you're not the most popular of people with the fans or with the players. So you're very necessary because the games won't go on without you. But nevertheless, the popularity is well, it's right up there with dentists and traffic wardens, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, no, I think that having fell into referee, the one thing enjoyment that you get is you're involved for 90 minutes and before the game and after, so you can't rest. And I took it as a challenge. I was then, when I first started, a 16-year-old refereeing on a Sunday morning 2 pub teams, where I can tell you that they'd been out boozing the night before. Some of them smell, we came up to toss the coin. And glad you went, whoa. The smell of beer and sort of bad breath was enormous.
I think that still happens at the top level now.
It does. Well, and the one thing is that if you do reasonably well as a referee, and you get out of the game without having to send somebody off, and you manage them effectively, then you'll get the thanks. But it's a challenge, and I didn't have any aspirations to get into anywhere near the professional game. All I would do is Saturday referee a game, Sunday probably 2 games, midweek. I used to referee 5-a-side football, and it was brilliant. It was the YMCA, and it was all the car dealers in Sheffield, the spibs, as I call them. And they used to call themselves spibs, I mean, they were a mixed bunch. And as they were getting changed, we all got changed together. You'd get one guy saying, "I've got a Rolls Royce on my patch. I can't get rid of this Rolls Royce. I think it's in the wrong end of the city. Any chance?" And then there'd be this discussion, well, you're going to want 5% or whatever you're going to. And so these discussions went on. And then when you get on the court, the 5-a-side pitch, it was all hell let loose, because some of them had never played football in their life and just decided that they'd kick everything. And so it was all fast and furious, all perspiring quite a lot. And you learn your craft. You learn how to deal with players. You learn the guy who's unhappy with you. You'd say, "Look, I just want an improvement. I'm not here to fight you, because I'd lose, wouldn't I? Look at the size of me compared to you. I'm a youngster." And they go, "Well, yeah, you are." And I go, "Just a minute. I'm the guy that studied the laws, and I know the laws. You don't, do you?" "Yeah, okay, ref, got a point." And you go off. But they were great. And then, obviously, I'm 17, 16, 17, and they're saying, "We're going for a pint." And you go, "I'll have orange, please, orange juice," because they're like, and you go, and all of a sudden, a pint of beer would appear.
So that's how you got started in the pubs, anyway. And I'm hoping you got a Rolls Royce out of it eventually.
No.
So Keith, you made your way through the different leagues, because I know that you spent some time in the Northern Premier League.
Yes. Yeah.
So how long does it take to go up the scale until you eventually get to do football league matches and well, it wasn't Premier League then, but football league. So it's quite a while, doesn't it?
Well, for me, and I was a youngster, and I went through the process pretty quick. Everybody, You know, when I was 18, 19, there's people in Sheffield saying, you're going to make Football League. And I was called into the county FA by the secretary who sat me opposite. And he just went, well, Mr. Hackett, I understand you've now got aspirations to be a Football League referee. And I went, well, yeah, absolutely. And he goes, it ain't going to happen in the next couple of years. This is a long apprenticeship. And I was quick. I got on after 12 years. And to compare that now, somebody like Michael Oliver, who's a youngster really, and our top referee at the moment, Michael did 8 years in local football. So it's a long apprenticeship, and it to some degree, it has to be, because one, look, in the local parks, you can make a mistake, they'll tell you, but you've not got the pressure of a Football League game or a Premier League game when it was formed. So, yeah, after 12 years, I'm on the Football League. You know, I can, you know, you get people. I refereed Lincoln versus Peterborough very early on. My first game was actually Stockport County versus Northampton. And the distraction there is that the Stockport ground is under the air flight path of Manchester Airport. And so sometimes you're blowing the whistles, nobody can hear you because you've got a 747, you know, thing that you can touch.
Brilliant. You don't think about those things. That's tremendous.
Yeah, so it was great, you know, and I refereed Lincoln versus Peterborough, and the manager then was Graham Taylor, the late Graham Taylor, and I refereed the match. It was Yorkshire Television, so it was my first televised game as a referee, and on the following Wednesday, I got a call, right? And it was Graham Taylor, and I thought someone was like taking the mick to some degree. Anyhow, Graham sort of said, Keith, I hope you don't mind me calling you Keith. He said, look, I thoroughly enjoyed your game on Saturday. I thought you refereed really well. You've got some empathy with the players. I just want you to keep at it. And referee like you did, because you look as though you're enjoying it. I like the smiles on the face. I like you playing advantage and getting out of the way. And keep it up. And that was it. And it's those sort of phone calls that at the time, you don't realize how important they are. But when, you know, referees' careers are up and down. And, you know, when you have that, you know, you're going through an injury and you're recovering or the game hasn't gone so well, you know, the first thing about a referee is he's the one that knows it's gone wrong. He's the one that can dwell on that error. Now, as a referee, when you're coaching referees, you say, look, if you realize you made a mistake, you've got to park it and forget about it. You can analyze it afterwards in terms of where did you go wrong, how did you go wrong. And invariably, you know, the important thing to understand about refereeing is you've got to see, you've got to recognize, you've got to think, and then you've got to act. And the majority of errors that are made in referee because they've not seen. And why I sort of jump up and down about modern referees is, look, I'm jumping the gun a bit. I brought in sports science. I brought in the running coach, the vision scientist, the sports psychologist. And, you know, at that time, I look back and, you know, for the cup final, I got 35 quid. I did it.
What, for the 1981 Cup final?
Yes. So,
how much?
You know,
sorry, I'm just going to get you to repeat that. So the 1981 Cup final between Tottenham Hotspur and Manchester City, you got £35.
Well, actually, Rick, it's this. What happens is you're in the dressing room before the game, and the guy from the FA comes in, the blazer with the badge and everything. He comes in and goes, right, Mr. Hackett, you've now got to make your first decision. What's that? You either get your match fee, which was £35, or the gold medal. Now tell me which you want. It's a no-brainer. You take the medal. Yeah. And of course, the great thing is, after the replay, the guy comes in and goes, I guess, because it's 2 games, obviously you've now got your gold medal because you've been presented with it. Here's the check for 35 quid.
So you got both.
Well,
that was a great thing about it going to a replay. So Keith, there's no doubt, I think, and I'm not just saying this because I'm interviewing you, but you know, you're on Talksport, and the reason you're on Talksport is I think you are certainly one of the best, if not the best referee in my lifetime.
That's very kind of you to say.
And certainly I don't think there's too many, and I'm saying this as a fan, I don't think there's too many good ones around now. And I don't think that VAR has helped that, but we'll come to that in a minute. But the pandemic, when there's been no crowds, one of the questions I wanted to ask you was how much you're affected by the crowd, because obviously if they feel that you've made a bad decision against their team, you're going to get all of that chanting and abuse from the crowd. And obviously during the pandemic there's been no crowd, so apart from VAR, which we'll talk about in a minute, do you think the lack of crowds have made a difference to how games are being refereed?
I think it's certainly had an impact. I mean, when we look, you feed off the fans. You know, it gives you this adrenaline rush. Whether you've done something good, they'll never recognise that, or whether you've made an error, because it keeps you absolutely focused. Because the one thing you don't want to do is make an error. But you've got to understand, you know, you gain by experience. You know that you will make mistakes because you sometimes don't see what the fans can see, or you're applying a law that the fans are not aware of. And so as a consequence, sometimes this can generate that noise. But, you know, hey, look, if you're in the big grounds in the professional game, the adrenaline rush you get just when you walk over that white line, you hear the music. You know, music is a great sort of introduction to the game. You know, okay, you go to Everton, it's Z cars. You go to Anfield, and you'll never walk alone. You know, these things stand out. The hairs on the back of your neck, because there's a lot of history, there's a lot of tradition. And, you know, I've been very fortunate because I was on the Football League and the Premier League, the professional level, for 23 years. So I managed to referee somebody like George Best. I refereed, you know, some of the top players in the game. And I just had the best seat in the house. I just had the best seat in the house. You know, you look around and you went, wow. You run alongside, and, you know, I can remember being at Norwich, running alongside Glenn Oddle, and he put this wonder pass out, you know, and like you just go, and I've gone to run alongside him and say, wow, that's fantastic. You know, I'm a fan. It's a disease. So the whole aspect is that the crowd and the adrenaline rush are part of it. Walking from the car park, say, you know, like Gladys Street at Everton, walking around the stadium, and the fans saying hello. Oh, we're in for a good game. It like lifts you. Now, I think one of the problems that we've had it in COVID is the games have been a little bit dull. They've been dull because the fans are not there. It's the colour. You know, the fans are the colour of our game. They do get a response from the players. And sometimes we've had games of chess, and I'm thinking, might switch over here and watch something else. From a refereeing point of view, at times, they've become spectators. Some are not fit enough. Let me be honest and brutal. You know, when I was boss of the Premier League, PGMOL, I went to the Premier League and asked for professional refereeing. And then I went to see Sam Allardyce and said, Sam, you know, how am I going to improve refereeing? And I need sports science, I brought one in. Sports psychology, I brought one in. You know, nutrition, brought that in. Vision scientist, brought that in. The vision scientist, the late Professor Gail Stevenson, who worked with Manchester United. I wanted not just the eyesight checking, I wanted vision and all that checking, peripheral vision. But I think sometimes we've got referees, I look and I think, how have you passed the fitness test? Your body mass is too heavy, mate. And then I watch referees falling short, like 10 yards. They get 10 yards to the penalty area and drop short.
Well,
And I just have to reflect.
I was
Yeah.
just going to ask Keith, who do you think the best referees are around at the moment, and who do you think really shouldn't be there?
Oh, I think that's a great point, and I'll be blunt. The best referee is Michael Oliver, providing he continues, he gets good coaching. I think that he's not getting coached well in England. I think, in fairness, he's an intelligent guy, and he's listening more to Europe and what Europe is saying, and that's making him a better referee. The downside of Michael Oliver is if he gets a game in low end of the table, he begins to lose focus and energy. He doesn't put the same amount of effort in. So sometimes, you know, I watched him a couple of years ago at Huddersfield, and I was very disappointed. And, you know, people around me are saying he's the best referee, and yeah, he is, absolutely. I think he's great. And he just didn't happen. Now, okay, he had an off day. Referees can't have an off day. So he's still learning quite a lot.
Sorry, you froze for a moment there.
Yeah, you've then got Anthony Taylor, who's equally. And then I go to the other end of the scale, and I'm looking. You know, 5 or 6 of these referees now are 50 plus. So out of 19, we've got Mike Dean, who's a competent referee, got great personality, likes to caution everybody in sight, sadly, and he's 52. And I look at some of the new guys on, first of all, Lee Mason. Mason had a refereeing role a few weeks ago and 2 VAR roles and was hopeless. And I've been saying now for 18 months, he's had his run, he's never reached the top level. Get him off. Give way to someone else. We've got Simon Hooper, who putting it blunt, is overweight. And therefore, as a result, he loses contact with play. If you lose contact with play, Rick, you don't see the incident. And so we've got Andre Marino, who's 50. Andre's clearly carrying a back injury, so his speed's gone. John Moss, well, hey, he's a record collector. He's got a vinyl record shop in Leeds. I think that's where he should stay.
I love it.
I cannot understand where he's running. I just don't, because, you know, I'm thinking he's game reading, and this is a so-called ex-professional player, allegedly. And I'm wondering where you're going. And I'm going, you're going in the wrong direction. You're moving towards your assistant referee. You're going to miss the back post, or you're going to miss things in midfield. He delivers every game.
So how are these referees getting through? Because clearly there are different standards. So is something going wrong at the top, Keith, that these referees are getting through when they shouldn't?
Let me tell you, the PGMOL needs a clear out. The guy who's run it now for a number of years, Mike Riley, I was his boss, and I coached him. And he wasn't a good referee. Do you remember the Arsenal situation where he called for a player towards him? The player didn't come, and he called again, he didn't come. And I'm going, all you've got to do, Mike, I'm watching the game, and I'm saying, Mike, send him off. Tell him to walk off the pitch. He's not going to walk to you. Now, I don't believe a referee should ever say to a player, come here. You know, in the book, I explain that's behind you that the triangle is there. Come and join me. It's part of the process. And then I never threatened anybody with a yellow card. I used to say, look, I want you to move in my direction. And I've always been mindful of that. And, you know, when you're cautioning somebody, the risk is when you're showing somebody a yellow card or a red card, you're belittling them publicly. And I can remember, I learned very quickly because my first game at Anfield, in the first 5 minutes, I'd blown for a free kick. And Emily Hughes, then the captain, gives me a right earful. And I've gone, look, it's my first decision. Yeah, you got it wrong. You got it wrong. And I've gone, but I'm the new kid on the block. You know I'm the new kid on the block. And he goes, yeah, you are. And so eventually, he has another word, and I've said, right, Tommy, come closer to me, join me. And he goes, yeah, what's the problem? I go, listen, I can't put up with this. What's your name? And he goes, you are. I've gone, what's your name? I'm the England captain. I'm the guy that appears on Question of Sport. I'm at Anfield. I go, yeah, you know me name. I go, what's your name? And he goes, you know me name. And I go, right, Hemlingg. And I'm saying it as I'm, guess what? Hemling. I go, he said he's Hemling Hughes. I said, that's what I wanted. And after that, we became buddies. You know, I mean, like, we got on.
Look, things are obviously very different today with different issues for referees. One of the issues probably is that there's far more foreign players, and that
Yes.
their English is maybe not up to the standard of, and sometimes they pretend probably that they don't get get what you're saying. But also, I wanted to ask you about the intimidation of certain managers, and I'm thinking of Alex Ferguson immediately, and Jose Mourinho, things that they put in the press, the mind games that they play, and the difficult players that you've had over the years. So, talk a little bit about the difficulties that you have with certain players and certain managers.
Well, Ferguson, look, spoke from a level of authority, didn't he? I mean, he's one of the world's leading managers. One thing that you've got to do as a referee is treat everybody equal. So in my eyes, he was the manager of a team. Doesn't matter whether he got a knighthood or not. It didn't matter at all. He was just Alex Ferguson, manager of Manchester United. And I once remembered I ran a line to Jack Taylor, the outstanding referee, and he said to me, Keith, you're going to advance to the top level for sure. One thing I want you to do is don't take what's written in the newspapers as something that's going to change you or depress you or do everything. Just take a note. So with somebody like Ferguson, as a referee, I got on quite well. And in fact, when I retired, he sent me a lovely letter. I've still got it somewhere in the house, complimenting me on my career. So I always respected him for that. And I would always show him respect. I think where I clashed more was when I was the boss of the PGMOL, when I'd retired from referee, when he was having a go. And in particular, there was one occasion when he had a go at Alan Wiley. Alan Wiley was pear-shaped. He never looked fit, but in fairness, covered a lot of ground. And on television, he just absolutely blasted Wiley, who I thought had a reasonable performance. But anyway, he made the point. And he just went, he's unfit. And I looked at pros on stats that I had, and of the 22 players on the pitch, distance covered, Wiley was number 3, covered 11,500 metres. High speed profile, he was 5th. He'd reached speeds of 7 metres per second over 1,000 metres. So I had all that evidence. So I was doing a 2-page interview for the Times. And I rang the Times up and said, look, I was really annoyed with Ferguson. I said, look, he said one of my guys are unfit. That's absolutely not the case. Here it is, the stats. And of course, Ferguson and everyone else at Manchester United went ballistic that I'd actually hit by. But I think that the challenge to a referee on the field of play is that you've got players of different personalities and you've got to deal with them. And with some, you've got to stay away from them. You know full well that if you were in the zone of somebody, of some players, they'd bite you like crazy. They would get on your back and you would lose focus and concentration because they'd tell you how bad you are. But I always tended to have answers. I can remember refereeing at Manchester United, and Joe Jordan and Gordon McQueen had just joined from Leeds United. And Joe Jordan had this ability to catch the ball, putting his two arms together, catch the ball almost. And I've seen this on television. I'm thinking, if he does that in a game, I'm going to blow that as a free kick. That's a free kick for me. And of course, I'm 10 minutes into the game. Joe Jordan does this, and I've blown for a free kick. And he comes bellying it, aching at me big time. And I've gone, Joe, it's handball. It's going to be handball whilst ever I'm refereeing this football match. Today's handball. And he came out with another expletives. And I went, right, fine. You're banned from Stringfellas. And he went, what are you on about? What are you on about? You're banned from Stringfellas. And then a bit later on, he runs alongside me. He goes, are you Johnny Hackett's brother? And I go, yeah, because my brother was a director of Stringfellas nightclub. And all of a sudden, I got Joe Jordan on my side, Gordon McQueen on my side. But that was the craft. But sometimes you have to take on board a little bit what the managers are saying. They understand the game. They see it from a different perspective. Yes, they might be slightly biased, but I would always read what they had to say, and then I would think, what are they getting at here?
Fair enough. Who were, and I'm sure everybody wants to know this, during your time as a referee, who were the best players to referee and who were the worst?
Yeah, I think for me, the best players were the ones that put in the effort. Kenny Dalglish was a 90% player, a 99% player. I mean, like, he never gave up. He just put effort in game after game after game. But there were other players, weren't there? There were players like Ozzy Ardiles who had the skill and the craft. You had Glenn Hoddle who could pass the ball. You know, I went on a soccer camp many years ago with the late Gordon Banks and learned, you know, hey, these are the guys that often don't receive the praise. So when you look around the goalkeepers, you know, that we've seen in the Football League and the Premier League, some wonderful players. But I always remember, I go back to how the game changes, because one particular day I got a phone call from a mate, the late Neil Misley, referee, and he said,
Yeah,
Peter, I've organised lunch for you. We're going to Burnham Park. And so I arrived at Burnham Park, and we go up into this large area to have lunch. And sat at the table was Tom Finney and Nat Lofthouse. And I sat and had lunch and just was in awe of these two guys. And they talked about the limited amount of money they earned, but the huge amount of enjoyment that they had from the game. And I'm the same. And, you know, they talked about going to a testimonial, and it was at Grimsby Town. And Tom Finney had taken delivery of a Morris Traveller, and they were like players today would say Ferraris and whatever. They were talking about this Morris Traveller as though it was in the same class. And they played at the game, and I just happened to say, well, what did you get then for playing? And they laughed, and Nat Lofthouse said, Keith, we got a bag of wet fish in a plastic bag. And then they smiled, and Finney said, yeah, my car never got rid of that fish smell. I'm sure it ran out of the bag into the back of my boot of my car. And then Lofthouse said, I knocked on the doors and fish was being cooked at 1 and 2 in the morning. And I said to him, Matt, why? And he goes, Heath, they had a cellar head. They didn't have a fridge. It's not like today. And so as a consequence, I think, you know, I look at players, and I watch players, and, you know, I've been very privileged to be on the same pitch of some of the greats. You know, one of the players that I really admired was a guy called Carlos Alberto. He lifted the World Cup for Brazil.
yeah.
And I tell the story of, I'm in Giants Tunnel. I'm refereeing New York Cosmos versus Vancouver Whitecaps. I refereed for 8 weeks on the North American Soccer League as a guest referee. And we're stuck in Lincoln Tunnel. And then all of a sudden, my driver gets out of the car, starts shouting in Spanish. And then back comes this guy who's got a small bag in his hand, sits alongside me, and I'm looking straight forward and thinking, I wonder what's going on. And there, sat at the side of it, was Carlos Alberto. And the driver says to me, I've told him that you're the referee, and so he doesn't have to worry about time. And we shook hands, and we passed some sort of recognition. Then suddenly, as we get near Giant Stadium, I suddenly think, I can't be getting out the same car as Carlos Alberto, who's the captain of New York Cosmos. Got out about half a mile early.
Yeah, that wouldn't have looked good.
And then I'd get in trouble getting in the stadium through the security. The recognition of me was zero. The recognition was the car that had driven, the car that was chauffeuring me to the ground. And I'm walking up saying, look, I'm the match referee. I assure you, I'm the referee. Oh, look.
You had to make sure everyone knew that that you were staying neutral. So, who was the hardest person that you refereed? The guy that you always thought before you went to the game, oh no, I've got to referee him. Who is that one person that you just hated referee?
Well, I never hated any refereeing. I think it was a challenge. I mean, you knew when you refereed Wimbledon that you got a handful, and you didn't know which one it was, because it could be Dennis Wise that was going to be putting them in today. But the one that you had to really keep an eye on, apart from Vinnie Jones, was Laurie Sanchez.
Really?
Because, well, he would do it like Johnny Giles used to do it at Leeds. It was Hunter that had the reputation, and it was Johnny Giles that would do it on the sly, out of your eye. You saw that you saw the Norman Hunters ones in the same way that you saw Vinnie Jones ones, right? But but these guys, they love the game as well.
Yeah.
The passion. Sometimes I don't seem to get, when I'm watching Premier League games at the moment, the level of passion. I'm sure I'm wrong because I'm not on the field, but there was massive passion. This sort of, if they were losing, they'd be really annoyed. And
well, we've just been. It's funny. We've just recently brought out a book that we've co-published with Mooney and Lambert in Idaho, which is a Spurs book on all the legends, and it goes right the way from Chris Jones, right the way through to Ledley King and Jermaine Defoe, and there's 40 legends in there. And it seemed that pre-Premier League, there were players who really had a feeling for the clubs that they played for. You never, they were happy to play for, and it's not just Tottenham. You look at players like Matt Letizia, who could have gone and Billy Bonds is another one. There were players around that really had that loyalty factor, and okay, there might be one or two today. I think probably it's fair to say Mark Noble at West Ham is probably one of those, and certainly in latter days Ledley King was that for Spurs. But there aren't many of those now. But the passion seemed to come with that, and now with what's just happened with this Super League and the money men that have come into the game, wanting it to be about how rich you are. A lot of those great memories for me have disappeared, and it would seem that you as a referee, you feel exactly the same way.
Yeah, I mean, I can remember going to Main Road one Saturday, and I walked across the pitch, and it was dodgy, it was hard, it was like concrete, and I've gone, I've gone in and said, look, to Bernard Halford, the late Bernard Halford, he passed away last year. He was the secretary of the club, and I said, Bernard, I've got to tell you that it took years. And he goes, Keith, we've really got to get this game on. So you've some work to do. He said, listen, if we don't get our game on, the players are not going to get paid. We need the money from the gate this week to pay the players. And so understanding that, you watched the Briars come in, you watched everything that's humanly possible to get those games played. Or, you know, at Grimsby with the groundsman, Frank Bridge, I arrived at around about 8 o'clock in the morning because the pitch was dodgy. I walked on, it was ice, it was water, and I've gone, no way. Crystal Palace have arrived. They're staying in Cleethorpes somewhere. And I've walked on and I've gone, no chance. And Frank Bridge said to me, Keith, I'll get this pitch fit for you. I'll get it fit. We need to play. And I said, well, Frank, I'll take a chance on you, the groundsman. I'm going to take a chance. And I can remember saying to both managers about 2 hours later, we're going to give it a chance. We're going to give it a try. And the managers just looked at me as though I was off the planet. The game went ahead, and I received the praise because everybody said, how did this referee know that this game was going to be playable? Because, you know, they were aware of the weather outdoors. And somebody rang me on the Monday and said, tell us, how did you know it was going to be playable? I said, well, it wasn't, was it? He goes, what do you mean? I said, well, it's Frank Bridge, the groundsman. I took advice from him. He's the expert. He did the work to get it going. So, you know, those are the things that, if you like, are the mosaic of a referee. People just think that we turn up, we cause the damage, create mayhem, disappoint half the fans that are there, and then walk away. We don't. We have a lot more work to do, you know. When you look at Michael Oliver this week with the Manchester United problem, with the you know, he'll have had a security meeting an hour and a quarter before kickoff, even earlier. And the police will have then, and the ground commander will have kept him informed of the developments, because you know, this is an event. You can't suddenly, as a referee, you can in the park say it's off, lads, you know, or you referee 20 minutes and you go, pitch is unfit, we'll walk off. You can do that in the local park. You can't do that at a professional level. You know, I can remember refereeing a cup tie. You'll see it on YouTube, Southend versus Liverpool. And I worked in Romford in Essex, and I arrived at the Southend ground, and it was okay. The pitch was fine. And then the snow came. And the first time I knew was that the linesman coming in and covered in snow. And I've gone, what's going on here? I'll go out, and I've gone, oh, crikey. It's white over. They've let the spectators in. The assistant chief constable that area comes into my dressing room and says, Mr. Hackett, we really need this game playing. And I've got the groundsman chasing red dye to mark the pitch out. And Bob Paisley, always remember, Bob Paisley came in and said, Keith, I understand from the police, I've had a conversation, there's a potential problem here. If you put all these fans out into Southend, it's going to create a real problem. No transport for the Liverpool supporters to get back into London. The trains are in London, they're not here, the tube and everything. And Paisley said, Keith, we want to play. I'll tell our players we want to play. And I can remember handing, it's all Lemley News again, I handed him the 50 pence, and no, I handed the captain the 50 pence, the home team, and I said, it's your call. And as the balls, the 50 pence coin has gone in the air, he shouted heads. And of course it lands, the guy doesn't catch it, it lands in the snow, it's gone. I've gone into tails. Lemley News said, how can you make it tails? And I go, I saw it on the way down. It's going to be played. But I think those were the things that you could say. And I appreciate, you know, hey, look, I had 10 years on the international panel, refereeing around the world, dealing with players who couldn't speak English. And the whole aspect then is you develop almost a sign language, a body language that says, you know, this is what I'm trying to get over to that particular player, if needed.
Well, look, there's still a couple of things that I want to take up with you. And we're definitely going to come on to VAR because I know you've got a lot to say about that. But very, very quickly, just explain to the viewers of this what it was like to referee a World Cup, because you were a World Cup referee, and that must be an incredible experience.
Well, I think that when you referee the very top international teams, you know, and I was fortunate to referee many, you know, Brazil with the music, you know, it's a carnival atmosphere. You referee Germany, and they were, you know, Germanic in their sort of approach, skillful, set pieces, always dynamic, all those sort of things. You know, I referee Korea, and you know, they politely you would say 10 yards, and they'd go 15 out of a sense of authority of the referee. Well, you go to the Eastern Bloc countries, and you've got Moscow. You know, you're in Moscow refereeing Russia, or in East Germany. You know, I refereed East Germany versus Switzerland, and the memory isn't the game. It's the memory of arriving in West Berlin and walking through Checkpoint Charlie, and the guy saying to me at the other side of the gate, "It's an amazing game, isn't it, football, Mr. Hackett? Here you're coming from the West, you walk straight through. If I wanted to go the other direction, I'd get shot." And a few years ago, the President of the United States made a very important speech outside of the gate of Checkpoint Charlie. He couldn't come in, the President. You're here, football. Yeah, great experiences. Sometimes the pressure would be the other way, because remember, I was an amateur in a professional game.
Yeah.
I was having to work. I was having to take time off work to do games. And the pressures came. The pressure came when I was appointed to referee New Zealand versus Australia, and you know, given permission to go by the company that employed me. Out I go to New Zealand to referee the football match, and then find myself suspended for taking time off work. That was the end of a career. Being appointed to referee in Germany, and Stuttgart versus Feyenoord in a I think it was a European Cup semi-final, and being told I got to attend a board meeting because I was director of a company. It was important that on this day I had to attend it, and so as a consequence of that, I flew into Germany with my two colleagues on a scheduled aircraft. But then, before I'd set off, I had to organise a private aircraft to bring me back at my expense. So I'm getting like peanuts for refereeing the game, but it's costing me 2,000 quid of my own money to charter an aircraft to get back.
Incredible.
Absolutely. You know, and these are, if you like, the sort of, you know, being appointed to the UEFA Cup final, which is a great honour. And the company that I work for wouldn't release me. So I had to tell UEFA, sorry, can't do the game.
That's amazing. Is this happening now, Keith? Is it?
No, because
how has this changed now?
Well, because I sat in front of the chairman of the Premier League, Sir Dave Richards, and almost insisted with him. It didn't take a lot of insisting, in fairness to Sir Dave, to say we've got to go professional. If we need to keep up with the speed of the game, how it's changing, the English game, how skill sets need to improve, we've got to make referees professional. So we started. We you know, they were on £45,000. We allowed them to work 20 hours a week at the company or the school, because some of them were coppers, others were school teachers on good pensions. And so their answer was, I want you to be professional. No way. What if I say to you, you can be professional, I'm giving you this salary, which is more than you're earning now, plus the fact that you can work for 20 hours a week at being a policeman. So you had somebody like Howard Webb, he'd referee Arsenal or Spurs on a Saturday, he'd drive home fairly quickly, and then he'd be sat in charge of a 12-seater bus around Sheffield and Rotherham, dealing with the drunks.
Jeez.
you know.
That,
And
that, that,
so
that's
the
incredible. I think
professionalism.
we're learning an awful lot about refereeing from you, Keith, and I really
Yeah,
appreciate it. Right,
yeah.
let's talk about the elephant in the room, VAR. Is it? There's obviously a problem. You know, managers, players, and fans. They all feel that there's a problem with VAR. Is the problem VAR? Or is the problem the way that the laws of the game have changed to fit VAR, or is it the people that are actually working the VAR system, or is it a mixture of all three?
Well, it's a mixture of two, I think. I think, first of all, we look at VAR from a technology point of view. And I don't like most people, we don't like the offside lines. And the reason I don't like the offside lines is I'm the guy that stood up in front of the Premier League owners and managers and coaches and executives and said, I want goal line technology. And I can remember Scudamore was saying, you put your head in the noose because nobody can deliver it. And I went to Hawkeye and worked with Hawkeye for about 18 months, not full time, but in sort of cooperation with them, saying, this is what I want. And the criteria I laid down. And so I wanted an instant judgment to the referee and no one else. I didn't want any human element involved. And to achieve that, we have around each goal 7 cameras operating at 500 frames per second. So if you've got a loaf of bread and you cut it 500 times, you've got a great deal of accuracy. When we go to the VAR part on offsides, the technology, they should dump. Absolutely get rid of it because it's operating at 50 frames per second. It's inaccurate to actually say a toe's offside. We're being conned. Absolutely being conned. So for me, dump it. Operate like VAR in America on the MLS, where Howard Webb's in charge, Greg Barkey runs the VAR. They rely on the assistant referee having a look at a second chance at a film. They don't use the lines. In Holland, they say it is inaccurate. So what we'll do is we'll draw the lines in a bit thicker. And when they're together, right, it's too close to call. We're not going to give offside. As a result, they don't have toes offside. So that bit, the technology bit, is wrong. Now we go to VAR itself. Remember the Premier League, unlike other countries, decided in the first year, Mike Riley announced we're going to use the side monitors sparingly. Well, 3 times out of 380 games, a referee walked to the monitor. That's not sparingly. That's not at all. It's just a joke.
Yeah.
It's conned us. So now we go to the individuals. I'm the guy who says you've got a specialist referee, you train, he's all good at that job. You've got assistant referees now. That's what they are. They do it week in, week out. They're trained. We get them honed. We get them efficient. That's good. VAR has to do the same. You cannot have a guy like Michael Oliver refereeing on a Friday night, 8 o'clock kickoff, finishing and coming out of the stadium at 11 o'clock in Leeds, and then driving to Middlesex because it's VAR at 12 o'clock on a Saturday. It's just not conducive to a professional sport. That's management. That's Mike Riley. So then we've got the aspect of when it should come in. In the MLS, it comes in once in every 3 games. In here, in England, it's almost like he wants to take over. We've got a VAR operator who thinks, I'm refereeing the match. I want to get involved in every decision. He's only supposed to get involved when it's a clear and obvious error. But they're coming in on everything. And the enjoyment, and I can't believe that they're ignoring the main stakeholder in the game, and that is the fan. So I can sit at home, I can watch what's going off. The gaps are filled in. There's continuity because when it's not happening, the television tell me what's happening. So I can see and understand the process. I can see. So what we do is we've got guys with mobile phones who can tune into Sky in the stadium. So what we say is, we're not going to show them on the big screen. All we're going to do is put a sign up that says, he's looking at offside. There's no interrogation or involvement in that process. And I just find it amazing that the guys in football in England, they can't be looking down a tunnel with headphones on when you've got rugby. And I can listen to Nigel Owens. Okay, he's retired now, but I can listen to Nigel say, let's see the film, talk me through it. No, I'm not having that. I'm giving whatever. I'm involved. I've paid a few quid to listen in. I can watch it on the big screen.
So you think we could learn from other sports such as rugby and cricket in terms of the way that they use the technology?
Absolutely. Well, I mean, listen, I learned from rugby when I was the boss of the PGMOL. I listened in to what the referee was saying with a communication kit, and I've gone to Scudamore the following week. This is what I want, and in fairness, Scudamore gave me the money, and I bought it. I bought the communication kits in. Then the question was, I got a call from FIFA, the guy from FIFA head office at Zurich, saying, Mr. Hackett, you've introduced technology without approval of the laws of the game. And I'm going, well, it's in, it's working, and I'm happy. And I think sometimes, as a boss of an organization, you've really got to have those between your legs that say, I'm going to make the decision. I stand by what I'm saying. And at the moment, I mean, I just shudder. I feel sorry for our referees because they're not being managed. They're not being coached. They've got people in those positions who didn't ought to be in those positions. They need to move on. Somebody said to me, oh, Keith, you've got a chip on your shoulder. No, I haven't. I'm retired. What I want is what I wrote a business plan for Dave Richards in the Premier League. Because I said, right, what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a cadre of world-class referees. That's what I said. And that's what I feel I delivered. Howard Webb did the World Cup, yeah, in Riley's time. Mark Pattenberg, world-class. Martin Atkinson, Mike Dean, Mariner. There were 10 of them. Mark Elsie could referee these games. Now, we really are scraping the barrel. We're putting a badge on somebody and saying, you're a FIFA referee, when he ought to be selling ice cream because he's not selling the decisions to me as a referee. So I'm going, don't believe that. And you know, we get red cards. You know, the West Ham player sent off. And you go, that's never a red card in a million years. The media say it's not. And his player saying it's not. Why has the guy sent him off? So what happens? He's gone with a VAR who says that West Ham player did kick him and he's off. And there's no accountability. He's out the following week.
It's the inconsistency. As a fan, it's the inconsistency. I think. I mean, look, we all think our team's hard done by. That's another part of being a fan. But I watched the Tottenham Sheffield United game this week, and what I thought was a clear stamp on. I don't understand how the player didn't even get a caution for that, let alone a sending off. So can you shed some light on
Yeah, I can.
On that?
I can. The player was John Fleck, Sheffield United.
Yeah.
Right. He stamped on his opponent. He trod him. A player has a duty of care towards his opponent. The laws of the game covered that. That's a red card offence without any doubt, any question. And so we've got, allegedly, the referee out on the pitch and the VAR not doing the job.
Yeah.
And nobody coming out and apologising. And this is what irritates me as a former referee. And it irritates fans enormously. And what happens? Because whatever happens at the top level cascades down into local parks. Now, okay, we're beginning to see games being played now. But they copy these things. But, you know, the players got away with it. So someone else thinks I can get away with it. This is like dissent. You know, yeah. I get away with it. I'll crowd round. You know, I'll do various things. I just think that Right, you know, Nigel Owen. I did a conference a few weeks ago, and Nigel Owen said about TMO and VAR. Think of the referee being a tightrope walker. So there you are, you're walking across the rope, nothing below you other than concrete. You know, if you take the wrong step, the wrong move, you make the wrong decision, you're possibly dead. Think about when now introducing the net, the safety net. What happens? The tightrope walker doesn't bother really. It doesn't matter if he falls off, he's going to fall into the net. But what we got with refereeing? Lazy tightrope walker, lazy refereeing. That's what we've got. And they all think, I'll get away with it. Concentration dips. You only need a 5% drop in concentration. You're going to miss it. And players must be asking themselves, he's just telling me, why has he got away with that?
Yeah.
Not getting it.
No, and I think fans will really appreciate you being so honest about this, Keith, because you've got a lot of credibility in this. So it's great to hear someone like you agreeing with a lot of what the fans think. This interview, I would really want this to go on for about 3 hours because there's so many things I want to ask you, but we are going to have to bring it to a close. But before I do, I can't let the 1981 Cup final go. So a couple of things I want to ask you about that. Ricky Villa's goal. I know we've spoken about it before, but just talk me through it from the referee's point of view.
Well, I think first of all, you've got to go back to the first match because Ricky Villa didn't have a good game. He was substituted. And I can remember watching a disconsolate player walking around the perimeter of Wembley like heartbroken because he was heartbroken. And for me, it sums up football. It sums up refereeing. It sums up football. You know, you're like a Kelly Dell. You get knocked over, you come back. And for me, here was a game that was played at high tempo. I could stay out of it. I simply thought that Jerry Gow was going to do something on our D list. I knew that before.
Now, that's the second thing I've got to ask you. A friend of mine has said to me, ask Keith Hackett how Jerry Gow stayed on the field after what he did to our D list. So I'm asking you on behalf of my best friend in Australia.
Right, I'll tell him. What he has to understand is this, that you may only get, like the referee, a referee only referees the cup final once. It's changed because of COVID, but you only get it once. What you've also got to understand is in 81, and it's changed a little bit now, but if a player got sent off in a cup final, right, he didn't get a medal. Now, he might not want a loser's medal, but he didn't get a medal at all. So to get to the final, he's gone through many games. So my view was, I was a referee that always wanted to keep 22 on and might have allowed a little bit. What I did know was that Gow was going to try to stop our dealers. I got in relatively early and quietened him down for some period in that game, but however you look at it. But I didn't have to send off. But the highlight, in a sense, was, so I'm by running fast, and by the way, I sustained an Achilles tendon in that injury in the first game, and I got visited by the physio at Rotherham United. I was heavily strapped, and here was Villa, picked up the ball, and goes on a run. And in a way, I don't think it was like Villa to do this, because I think Villa was one that headed it and shot. But all of a sudden, I'm thinking that's a foul. Nearly blew. I nearly blew for a foul and didn't, and just let it evolve. And you know, you watch it and you can picture it because it all happened in slow motion. For me, it went into slow motion because it was just incredible. You know, the atmosphere was unbelievable. The second game, the heartbeat of the game was the players. You know, the players were entertaining everybody. They were all giving 100%. They were all trying hard. And I'm following. I'm happy to follow. I'm happy to allow something because this is entertainment as its best level. This is how football should be played. And I always had this thing, I have it today, that the fans don't pay to watch the referee, who's coming in too often now in the modern game. They come to pay to watch the players, and the players express themselves. And, they find a level. They know what's out of order and what's not. And so for me, in a way, in that game, yeah, my tolerance level was low. There was some honest clogging going on, but it was to the mix of the game. No one was put out of the game for a bad injury, and no one was ducking and diving. If they went to ground, I'm telling you, like Garth Cooks, he's fouled. And I think that was the first penalty kick for 19 years in the final. So it was just a marvellous occasion. And for me, I just came off delighted that everybody had been entertained, the buzz in the stadium, yes, the disappointment. You know what happened, which was I felt was amazing and sums up football. The manager of Manchester City, John Barnes, wasn't it? No, John Bonds, sorry.
John Bond.
John Bonds got off his seat and came towards me, shook my hand and said, "Well done, Keith, brilliant." And everything else was going on. He'd got major disappointment. Man City had lost. And he still had this thing of coming up and saying, "Thank you very much." And for me, that really was the nice thing. And of course, the manager of Spurs doing the same. Yeah, great occasion. Of course,
Keith Birkinshaw.
Walk up and get your medal.
No, that's fantastic. Listen, we at Spurs, we still love you, Keith. And I love you even more.
Don't say that to West Ham fans
or Arsenal fans. But listen, I love you even more because of this great book that's behind us, because you've done a fantastic job with this book, and we made sure that it covered VAR as well at the time. So we're going to point people towards where they can get this book. It's always great talking to you. I miss being with you in person, so hopefully that can happen again very soon, Keith. But your honesty always blows me away, and there are lots of things that you've talked about today that I know are going to get people talking. But that's what you do. You're from Yorkshire. Yeah. How could you do anything else?
Absolutely.
Listen, mate, thanks again, and it really is very, very much appreciated. Thank you.
Thanks, Ray. Bye, mate. Thank you. Bye.
Well, that's an interview that I think will start a few discussions across social media. I'll look forward to seeing those. Keith is always incredibly honest and doesn't mind mentioning names, which he's done this time, and speaks right from the heart. And hopefully you could tell that within this interview. The book behind me is a book that he's done with Paul Trevelyan, and that's available from Amazon, and we'll put the link for that as to where you can buy it at the bottom of this recording. And it's well worth it because Keith really knows his stuff. Please subscribe to the channel. I know I always say that. Let's get a few more subscribers to this channel, because that's how you can find out who we're going to be interviewing in the future. But thank you for being part of this recording, part of this interview. I'm sure you'll agree that it was incredibly interesting, and we'll see you again next time. Thank you.